The best type of breath work is the type that you will practice, because what does not work is in the middle of an anxiety attack to be like, oh, what did that girl say about box breathing? I've never done it, but let me, in this moment of full anxiety, try to do it. That's never going to work. If you do that practice when you are in a moment of overwhelm or anxiety and you do it again, it will pull you back to that peaceful state. Like your body has that memory, and your emotional body especially. But if you really can just hold some posture, some reminder to yourself, like we're in our calm state, like we're going to go back to our calm state. So that is the midlife crisis that we feel. It's just this opposition and this re-looking at, like, what am I doing and why am I doing it? And who am I? Maybe like you're a mom now and you're like, well, what does that make me? And so there's just all this self-reflection, and people who've never experienced any anxiety or overwhelm in this stage of life start to feel it. And it's actually a very beautiful time. I think we've kind of in society made it like oh, you're getting older and the wrinkles, and it's not. It's actually, to me, this incredibly beautiful time where you get to become yourself more, because I would say the great thing about growing older is you don't care like what everyone else thinks, right? Like it's just, what do I need?
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Sovereign Self Show. And today we are talking with Kavita Sahai all about yoga, meditation, journaling, what it means, what happens during midlife, what can we do about it. And before we get started, a little bit more about Kavita is that she went from investment banking and private equity to now natural health and beauty through a journey of self-healing. She got certified in yoga, Ayurveda, aromatherapy, and holistic nutrition. What's her mission? To help women in midlife go from meh to magic by making it as effortless as it is essential. Isn't that the truth? Easier said than done. That's why y'all are listening to this podcast. Welcome to the show, Kavita. I'm so excited to have you on.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to have this conversation with you.
Yeah, me too. We were talking. I got too excited before we hit record. I'm like, what kind of breath work do you do? You know, because we're just jamming on what we want to talk about today. You know, a lot of these things are popular nowadays. Yoga is such like a Western normal thing. Every soccer mom knows what it is, you know?
Amazing, because when I was growing up, I remember seeing my parents and grandparents like doing headstands and all these positions. Yeah. I'm like, oh my God, why is everyone so weird? Like, my friends are coming. Can you just sit straight? Like, what's happening? And now they would be the coolest people ever, right?
Right. I know. They'd have
amazing how transformational it's been. Like, I can't even imagine that people say the word chakra, right? And it's just like people know what that is. And so I think we're in this cool awakening where all these ancient tools, which we have at our disposal, are becoming more mainstream. And how amazing is that?
Beautiful and so powerful. I feel like it's a remembering for a lot of humanity too. Mm-hmm. You know, we've been here before. That's my belief. Yeah. And so when these practices, you do them and you're just like, whoa, I didn't realize how good I could, feel before all of this. And I'm sure that there was a journey for you coming from investment banking and private equity, like the way other side of the pendulum, so to speak. So, Cliff Notes version, what really sparked your awakening, your journey to now doing the work that you do today?
So the Cliff Notes version is essentially that I got so out of balance that I started to react on a mind, body, soul level. Like, I just didn't feel good, even though I would go to my many relatives that were all doctors, because I'm Indian. And they were like, you're fine. Your blood work is fine. Everything's fine. And I'm like, no, I'm not fine. I need 100 Post-it notes to keep track of what's happening. I feel awful. Like, I just don't feel good about myself, even though I was probably at the most successful point of my career and should have been feeling amazing. I just wasn't. And so I essentially just shifted my goal or redefined what I thought success looked like, to rather it being a financial number, being a feeling. Like, I'll know that I'm successful when I wake up feeling amazing and vibrant and joyous. And that sort of started this path to seeking, with curiosity, what could I do to achieve it?
Yes, it always starts with, it seems like, stuff hitting the fan, so to speak, in our own lives. And it's like, especially as women, we have over 300 plus episodes now. And I would say 98% of our guests are women. And so many of us are like overachievers, perfectionists,
Yeah.
the doctors, the bankers, the CPAs, the people, the women who can want to do it all and can do it all. But then there's this moment where you're like, wow, my body, my energy, like you said, my spirit just isn't who am I doing this for?
That's right.
You
It's
know,
a
and
very profound question of like, why am I doing it
Mhm.
if it's not filling my soul? Like if you're doing it and it's filling your soul, then that's amazing, right? But if it's not, it's having that courage to kind of say, okay, well, can I become curious about what might?
Yes, yes, yes. And I think the tools that you help empower people with are very, fundamental, powerful building blocks. And, you know, I know you help a lot of women with midlife stuff, which is funny because I'm like, oh, I'm an elder-ish millennial. I'm in midlife now. I'm 35. It's almost, and I was like, that's weird for me. But I'm like, yeah, so many women I know, friends, my mom started going through perimenopause around this time. So
Yeah.
it's like midlife's here, and whether we're practicing these practices or not, a lot of women go through different health challenges, but also emotional, like we just talked about, coming to Jesus, so to speak. What am I doing with my life? So, and a lot of anxiety with that. So that's where I kind of wanted to go in, as things that we thought were working kind of
Right.
midlife. It's kind of like,
Well, so it's
mm,
interesting. Even from like an astrology perspective, your chart is actually in opposite, right? So that is the midlife crisis that we feel. It's just this
mhm.
opposition. And this re-looking at like, what am I doing and why am I doing it and who am I? Maybe like you're a mom now and you're like, well, what does that make me? Or, maybe your kids are leaving and you're like, what does that make me? And so there's just all this self-reflection, and people who've never experienced any anxiety or overwhelm in this stage of life start to feel it. And because they've never had it, they don't have the tools to ground themselves and really work through it with ease. And it's actually a very beautiful time. I think we've kind of in society made it like oh, you're getting older and the wrinkles. And it's not, it's actually to me this incredibly beautiful time where you get to become yourself more, because I would say the great thing about growing older is you don't care like what everyone else thinks, right? Like it's just, what do I need? And now you start to understand those crazy old ants you had, right? But it's freeing. It's very freeing because now you can do things because you want to, or because they fill your cup, and not because there's an expectation. And so I think that is the beautiful part about midlife that I don't think we spend enough time on. And if we do have the tools like breath work and yoga to ground ourselves when our hormones and our emotions are sort of taking this roller coaster ride, we can go with so much more ease.
Yeah, and I'd love to dive into, like, breathwork is it's becoming a word like yoga nowadays. People know what it is, but there's, I'm sure, thousands of different techniques, right? For somebody listening, interested, okay, how does breathwork help with anxiety? Because there's so many different kinds of breathwork, but specific for anxiety, I mean, we want to calm it down, right? We want to regulate our nervous system.
Well, so one of the biggest things, and it really doesn't matter the technique of breath work. Like I would say now my favorite one is probably the simplest. And maybe it's because I've been teaching my kids forever. So I just got into the habit of doing it all the time, was like square breathing, which is just an equal part inhale and exhale, sort of like you make a mental square. But the best type of breath work is the type that you will practice, because what does not work is in the middle of an anxiety attack to be like, oh, what did that girl say about box breathing? I've never done it, but let me in this moment of full anxiety try to do it. That's never going to work. But if you do breath work and you even can pair it with a mudra, like just putting your, fingers together, just a simple one, if you do that practice when you are in a moment of overwhelm or anxiety and you do it again, it will pull you back to that peaceful state. Like your body has that memory, and your emotional body especially. So you'll immediately feel this sense of calm that'll be like the benefit of the practice that you did. And that could be breath work or meditation, but if you really can just hold some posture, some reminder to yourself, like we're in our calm state, like we're going to go back to our calm state. It works amazingly well. Like even when I used to have to give big presentations or do something, I would just kind of make that mudra and I would immediately feel calm.
Yes, we do. I feel like we have muscle memory, so to speak, with these practices, opening those neural pathways to building those connections. Neuroplasticity, that was the word I was looking for. Yeah, for me, I think I'm more rare. I had my quarter life crisis
Yeah.
and right when I graduated university. And so I had that beautiful blessing and curse. No, but really blessing and breath work. That's really what helped me, the alternative nostril breathing.
Yeah, I love
And
that
which
too.
is also yogic breath work as well. And you're right. It's whatever breath work works for you
That's right. And that
that
was
you're
actually
going to
great if you
do.
have allergies as well, because it really can open up. No, it's amazing. And I think the biggest thing is again to approach with curiosity the different
Yeah.
self-care tools, but find the ones that work for you and do them consistently so that they kind of have the chance. I liken it to like a gym workout. You can't go in once and just be like, oh, I don't know, it didn't help. Like you have to do it consistently. Now, it doesn't matter if which workout type you choose, but it's sort of like the idea is to continually to work out. And then so I think that's the same thing when it comes to your emotional regulation and anxiety. Pick a methodology, but stick to it. Like have that belief that it will work. And if you do it over time, whether it's journaling, yoga, meditation, breath work, I mean, there's so many different modalities. And maybe even you're experimenting with different ones to keep it new and different for you. But the idea is you're constantly providing yourself with this bit of self care. And I really find that that's really what has helped members in our community with their anxiety in big ways.
Yeah. I think when you're going through a transition, midlife or whatever, I know for me, definitely, it was like, oh my God, this is my new norm. How am I going to live my life? And so for me, it was really this perspective shift of like, this too shall pass, right? And also, this is happening for me.
That's right.
And remember, our natural state is that well being. And when we're going through transitions or shifts like that, major changes in our lives, sometimes that's a little hard to remember
That's
that,
right.
that this is even happening for me. I guess how, members of your community, yourself, your own practice, working through that transition, what kind of, spiritual, but also mindset practices you have to really ground yourself that regardless of what pain you're in emotionally or physically, to really look at the big picture and to be grateful for where you are and know that this too shall pass.
So our community is only women. And so I have the benefit of then offering sort of that, you remember when you were in hormonal and getting your period and that how awful that was and how it felt like this is the worst thing ever. But then it launches you into this beautiful womanhood um, that you wouldn't have wanted to stay a child forever. And then in midlife, I sort of say it's the same thing. You don't want to be in your 20s forever. It's as amazing as it was of a decade, like, and even mid 30s, like there is a beautiful path that comes beyond it, but you're in that uncomfortable period that you went through when you got your period. It's just you're in this shift where your hormones and your body is having to reconfigure itself. And there are, of course, the women's body was never studied at depth because they just kind of looked at us like little men, for whatever reason, and partially because it was too complicated because of our period. So a lot of times we were excluded from studies for that very reason. But now that they are looking at it, there are real changes in our brain and in our bodies that are happening that really kind of take some recalibrating. And so I really look at it as this recalibration, like just take this time. It's a transition time. Be kind to yourself. Fill your bucket as much as you can and know that it will pass. Like you said, this too shall pass. And on the other side, it will be beautiful.
Yeah, it's really about, you know, living your own life. I think you're going through childbearing years, whether you have children or not,
Totally.
but you're shifting out of that phase of your life at a physiological level. A lot of people's kids are grown up or are on their way out. And now it's like, okay, really, who do you want to be? What do you want to do this next chapter? And a lot of women, I think, culturally, in their family, generationally, it's really, even my generation is like doing it all and helping everybody and being superwoman. And now your body is saying, yeah, you've done that for so long. That's not working anymore. We're going to have to, from what I've heard from other guests and friends. And, that's kind of what people are like, yeah, it's your body's wake up call to say, hey, we're going through this transition and this is about you and your journey.
Correct. And in a way, I think that's what's beautiful about it because for
Yeah.
so long, it is about everybody else. Right? It's about your parents, and, it's about your kids, it's about your husband, it's about, and then all of a sudden your body is forcing you to say, sorry, it has to be about you.
Yeah.
Like you're going to pay attention to me one way or the other, or I'm going to be sweating and I'm going to make your life so miserable until you pay attention to yourself. And I think that that is a beautiful thing in and of itself, right? To finally say, okay, I have to stop. I have to make my goal my own vibrancy. And that's, I think again, on the other side, it's beautiful. It's just, and it's about doing it and making sure you don't do it alone. Like, I think the unfortunate part is on our parents' generation, women never spoke about it because it was like, when you went through menopause or something, it meant like you were done. Like, even if they weren't having kids in their 40s or 50s, it was like, that was the marking of you're officially done. And then somehow that was like a bad taboo. And so they did it alone. And I think now we have this opportunity to commiserate. And I think really women need women, and we need these tribes and these circles and these communities to get through these different phases of life with a lot more joy and fun and ease.
Yeah. And it's really, yes, commiserate, but from an empowered point of view.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
Yeah. And it's,
Well, and share, right? Like,
yeah,
I
and
did
share.
this is what worked for me. There's so much knowledge sharing that's lost when we don't share.
Yes. And I think there's a sisterhood wound, no matter what age you are, for women, I think. And, that's what I've called it to create in my life and in my business is really, we're not in competition with each other. There's no judgment. I feel like we're really missing that, especially as women. I'm very spiritual, not religious. And, in a religious community, you have that kind of sense of sisterhood. The people who are outside of that were like, you didn't realize you're really yearning for that. And I remember learning about blue zones and different areas around the world who have older populations, older than 100. And one of the main things was that they had lifelong friends, and how valuable that is.
No, it's huge. I think you're completely correct. And I think that that is something in midlife we start to realize, like, it's not a competition, right? It's not anymore about who looks better or who has more. Or it's again, it's more this, like, how do we all lift each other up to feel good? How do we laugh more? How do we live better? I think there is this shift. And I think that uncomfortableness or that lacking that we might feel in purpose is because we're focusing on the wrong things, right? And so as soon as you start focusing more on giving in a community or tribe and refocus and learn and share, it does lead to longevity. It's a proven fact.
Hello, taking a quick break here to tell you about something I'm so passionate and excited about that I take almost daily. Micro-dosing mushrooms. If you are looking for natural ways to support your emotional, mental, spiritual health and well-being, then you might want to try Golden Rule mushrooms. Microdosing is not about escape. It's about returning to who you really are. It's a science-backed way to reset your mind, rewire habits, and reconnect. Golden Rule uses organic mushrooms, 100% fruiting body, accurate dosage, has amazing customer service, education, and safety protocols. Use code Loren10, that's LOREN10 at goldenrulemushrooms.com for 10% off your purchase. It's a small step that might make a huge difference in how you feel. Thank you so much for supporting our show. Back to the episode. I would definitely agree with that. And I think the community, the just being grateful for where we are, even though we know it's not going to be this way forever. I'm sure so many of the listeners, because we've had the show for over 6 years now, have gone through that healing journey. The more that we try, whatever healing journey that may be, physical, relationships, career, purpose, realize the more that we resist it, the more we want to change it, the more it really persists. It's almost this acceptance and this allowing and surrendering rather than denying it or pushing away or trying to get rid of it. And that really starts with the daily practices and setting your day up right. For me, the morning routine is huge, whether I want to get out of bed and do it or not.
Yep.
And also for me, the nightly routine, because I notice, like, if I go to bed kind of anxious trying to think about the day, then I wake up a little anxious trying to plan out the day, right? So it's, for me, I notice it's the beginning of the day is important, but also the end of the day as well. So I'd love to hear your perspective on that morning routine. Doesn't have to be a 3-hour ritual, like, do what works for you, like what we said with the breath work.
Absolutely. It's funny you say that because we have whole modules on evening and morning routines, because I think they really go hand in hand. You can't go to bed at 3 in the morning and then expect that your morning routine is going to serve you in any way. But 100%. So to me, the number one tenet of health is sleep. And so setting yourself up in the evening for me, some of that's just a simple download. So I really like the 5-minute journal. And I just, in my head, will just even go through it. Like, what are the 3 things I'm grateful for? What's the one thing I wish would happen better? And, what are 3 things I'm sort of looking forward to or hoping to accomplish tomorrow? And that just helps me kind of think through my to-do list before I go to bed and I'm ruminating on all the many things. And if it happens to be a stressful day or time, I'll journal, right? Like I feel like it's better to get it all out and sleep peacefully. And I try to, stay away from the screens and that sort of thing before getting to bed. But that's sort of my nighttime routine. And then in the morning, I try to do a little bit more. So I'll get up, I'll meditate, I'll get some movement in. But for me, that really started with just 5 minutes. Like I kind of wanted to have this more elaborate routine, but with the kids and dog and all the things, it was like, okay, what if I just start with 5 minutes meditation, 5 minutes journaling, 5 minutes of movement, what would that like? And then 5 minutes of a little bit of Ayurvedic tools that I use, like tongue scraping and all that kind of stuff. But, and then over time, as you start to feel good, you make more time for it. Right. And so then that 5 minutes became 10 minutes and the 10 minutes became 15 minutes. And, now I'm getting up a good hour and a half before I need to get up to really kind of put the whole routine into play. And then I really set myself up for success. And I've noticed that my emotions don't weigh. So when I get bad news, it's not like, oh my God, this is everything is very much more tempered, good or bad. And I feel like that stability is so great, right? Because it doesn't matter what's coming my way. I know it's fine.
Yes, isn't that the true test of what you're doing? Because if we're just going through the motions, I've been there. I'll raise my hands.
Yeah.
Going through the motions and meditate just to cross it off the freaking list. And then when shit hits the fan, and then we react or get triggered, it's like, what's happening? We can doing all the things, and that's what I've seen in myself and a lot of women. It's like, I'll do this, because this is gonna fix me. And then we just do it because we think it's gonna fix everything, but we're not really present with it, right? And so I think that's a huge test. Is okay, how do we react when something happens?
Yeah.
Doesn't mean we'll ever get triggered. I got triggered last night. I asked my partner if he wanted food. He said no, brought it home, and then he wanted to eat half my food. And I am in luteal phase, so I will say that was part of the hormones were raging. It was like a minute, and I just flipped it, and he looked at me, and I said, yes, I know. And I was able to calm down right then. But yeah, we're going to get triggered. So how are we going to react?
Right.
To the triggers?
Well, I would say, are you going to walk around if we're a half can of soda, are we a shaken half can of soda? So can we kind of bring it down so that if someone cuts us off, we're not completely unhinged?
Yeah.
And so that's always what I think about. When I leave in the morning, I'm like, did I do enough so that I'm not a shaken can of soda, right? So that I'm not ready to explode at anything.
Yeah.
And of course, some days it happens no matter what, especially when I'm with you with the cycles. And I think that only gets worse. It's kind of like when you first get your period and when it's starting to head out, I feel like the emotions around it are kind of insane, but it's just noticing, right? No judgment, just, okay. To me, it's always information. I'm like, okay, maybe I just need to journal or breathe or a little bit more because there's no reason to be so upset about whatever it is. Most things, right? Most things, there's no reason to be so upset.
Well, I think that's a huge part, the emotional aspect of midlife, like you said. Women can relate because we've had our cycles and the hormone shifts, and we don't feel the same throughout the month. And I think it's difficult for a lot of men, I think, to understand that. And I've noticed in myself too that the hormonal shifts. I'm like, oh, I have to dial in my nutrition a little bit too, and also my practice, because I'm like, okay, yeah, I can feel that the peaks and the valleys a little bit more. But I think, from my perspective, when I started doing my spiritual journey, a lot of fear at first, and then a lot of anger. Because I think a lot of women hold that down. We don't give ourselves the space to express it healthily, and we just turn it inward on ourselves, which is really sad. But I notice that's a through line no matter what age you are. So I do think, from what it sounds like and what I'm starting to experience, it's turned up a little bit.
It continues to get turned up. And that's why it's really important to be aware, right? Because it's almost like we all know what it's like to be super emotional on your period where you're crying or really angry or you're just irritated with everybody. Now imagine that's just your state of being.
Yeah.
as your hormones are going kind of crazy. And so if you can bring that awareness and grounding, you could start to do something about it, right? Like maybe you need to supplement, maybe it's nutrition, maybe it's working out. Like it's just bringing awareness to that this is another transition and I need to utilize the tools that have been left for me from generations of women that have come before and try to navigate with more ease.
Yep. I think the emotional aspect, I thought going on this journey, doing yoga, that, one day you would reach enlightenment and you wouldn't have any of these emotions. But isn't that the funniest thing? I think a lot of people think that maybe subconsciously, but we have to realize, and I remind myself this all the time, without the contrast, without the emotions, we wouldn't grow. We
That's
wouldn't
right.
want to change. We wouldn't expand. We would just stay the same. And that's definitely not the constant in this life
No,
whatsoever.
no. I really believe we're all here to learn lessons,
Yes.
and the challenges we face keep reminding us that we have this lesson to learn. If we don't learn it, it'll keep coming louder and louder. And so that's why whenever something happens, I really try to pay attention. Like, what do I need to do or learn or tweak so that it's not louder the next time?
Yes. And for me, all the things that your community and what you guys teach have helped me so much. But yoga, the asana, the physical practice, has definitely helped me a lot. The mind body connection, just what it feels like to feel grounded in your body, and especially when you're going through emotional period in your life. Sometimes meditation, breath work is a little bit easier, but when you're really stuck in your head, it can be very, very, yeah. So I would love to hear, we talked a little bit off air about, your vinyasa practice. What, how does yoga help women in midlife? What kind of practices? There's so many different kinds of yoga that they can start to incorporate to really become present in
So
their
I will say
bodies.
yoga, like breath work, like anything else, the best one is the one you'll do consistently.
Yeah.
The biggest thing is just to do it because it really helps with flexibility and it really helps. Yoga really works the little muscles that you need for longevity and just to help with, all of the aging process. But also it is breath with movement. So you are doing the breath work as a part of it. And that gets you out of your head and into your body and it helps you feel grounded. I mean, there really is something to that yogi glow. I remember when I was doing the teacher training, we were doing so much yoga. I was like, oh my God, now I see why these people are so happy all the time. Like you are just filled with so much love. And I think it's just connection to self that happens during yoga. One of the best ones I say to do every day is sun salutations. It's the basic vinyasa flow. It is just a proven set of movements, proven through generations and generations to really help you ground yourself to your body. And so if you did 5 to 10 sun salutations a day, I feel like that would be an amazing way to kind of nourish your mind, body, and soul at the same time.
Yeah. Whatever, whatever you will do. And for me, that changes day to day throughout my cycle. I just try the movement aspect, whether it is more yin yoga,
Right.
which honestly is more challenging for me as a vinyasa person most of my life. Sometimes that yin yoga, I am cursing at myself way more.
Yeah.
But then I know I need to do that because I need to balance out the energy. You don't need to be moving around so much and pushing yourself.
That's right.
You
Like it
can
took
sit with.
me, I'm a vinyasa yoga person too. So I'm the same way. When I had to go to yin, I was like, what? How come we haven't moved yet? And you notice the chatter in your mind. I'm like, oh,
Yes.
this is a me problem.
Yes, yes, yes. I think there's so many tools out there
Yeah.
in ancient traditions like yoga. It can be overwhelming, right? Where to go. And I know that you have a beautiful community that really helps women connect, but also has all, these practices that people can do and connect. So I'd love to, I know we've been talking about the community and what, but we haven't really dived into it. So what is your community? Who is
Yeah.
it for? Where can they access is all that beautiful stuff?
Yeah. So the community is called Vibes Tribe and it's vibestribe.co. And essentially it's for women in their midlife. And we have hundreds of classes led by experts in their field. So it's everything from yoga, vinyasa, chair, yin, or self-care. We have self-love journaling and a whole healing class. We have different somatic breathing and somatic healing tools, many, many different breathwork classes. And then also every month we do a live class just to, again, bring in community, get a sense of what we do. And so I would invite everyone to come join. It's free. You can get it on our website, a ticket, and we have one every month. But yeah, then we have a private membership group and we do live hours. But really, it's so that we can all in community learn the different tools, because what works for me might not work for you. And so I want to make sure that everyone has all the different modalities at their fingertips in a way that's easy, but also have a place to ask questions. So it's not just like, oh, I did it, now what? It's like, hey, I did it, I didn't get it. Or, if maybe you're taking a yin class, you're like, was I supposed to lay there for 20 minutes? Like, and be able to get the feedback of like, yes, this is why, these are all the many benefits. And so that's the idea, is to not do it alone.
Yes, that's, I think what so many of us are missing is not doing it alone. And I know one thing I read in your bio we haven't talked about, which I'm not so much anymore, but I was super interested in it in my beginning yogi days, which really helps, I think, with midlife, is Ayurveda.
Yes.
And really being able to balance your body out energetically, physically, especially during midlife, to really help that. So people who, listeners probably have heard that word before, but what is Ayurveda and how can it really help
So
women in
Ayurveda
midlife?
is the sister science to yoga.
Yeah.
So it comes from the same sort of knowledge base, but this one is more around how you treat so there's 3 different doshas. So it's basically like, how do you treat your dosha? And that can be, what should you eat? And it can even be seasonally, like, eat based on season. And if you need to be a more cooling effect. And then there's a lot of different tools around, like I think I alluded to tongue scraping. It's one of my favorite ones, and it really helps ignite the digestion. So it's really more around your physical body and energy body and how to nourish it. On our platform, actually, my sister-in-law she's an Ayurvedic doctor. So she has a whole anti-inflammation course, which is really wonderful. And she really helps teach you like how to eat by your dosha, which again, it can be so transformational. And I always say to people, like, everything can be overwhelming, but just approach everything with curiosity. And if it's for you, keep it. And if it's not for you, okay, you tried something new and, you move on to the next thing.
Yes, it really helped me, when I started healing digestively. Yeah. Only drinking warm water, not drinking cold water, very basic things that you think, my gosh, intuitively, that makes sense.
Yeah,
but
the
in the
ice in
West,
the water is always like blown my mind. I'm like, why?
it's so normal here, but people are,
Yeah.
but it's just like, oh my gosh, such a freaking game changer. Women who are in midlife, who maybe understand these things, but are going through this transition, I kind of want to end the show of like, really, what do you have to say to them in terms of like being on this journey, where to start? Maybe they feel like their body and their life is like exploding and falling apart.
I want to say, you're not alone. If you feel completely crazy, it's completely normal, and would love to have you join a community of like-minded women to help you. You do not have to do this alone. Nobody should do this alone.
And that seems to be the central message, right? You don't have to do this alone. And I think that sounds like, doesn't matter if you're midlife or not, but that sounds like such a beautiful gift and blessing of this experience is you don't have to do it alone. There's a community of women all over, whether it's this one or another one.
Exactly.
That's what you're being called towards. And the tagline of this show is, your body's not in the way, it's leading the way.
That's right.
And this is not an exception to that. And I think any stage in life is so beautiful. But thank you, Kavita, for coming on and really sharing your heart and your experience and, being that shining light for women who feel like maybe they need a little bit more of a guiding light through this transition than they realized they needed. We're just so grateful for you and having you on the show today. And we close out the show asking, how may we be of service for you in return today?
Honestly, I would just love to connect. I love connecting with like-minded women. So, whether you find me through the live event or on social, but I love to connect to like-minded women. I think all of us together are here to bring out the light in each other. And I'm sure there's a lot I could learn from all of you as well. So that's the only ask, to connect.
Beautiful. That ties into our theme, that community connection. Well, thank you again so much. And if you guys haven't already subscribed, we are on all podcast platforms as well as YouTube as well with a full video episode. If you could give us a review, that really, really helps spread this message out, reaching all the women, midlife or not. If you think of a sister, a mom, an auntie, whoever, please share this episode with them because they popped into your mind for a reason. You never know what one podcast can do to help somebody on their journey. Thank you so much for tuning in, and until next time.